You're listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, episode number 96. A nutrition reading list for kids? Yes, ma'am. I've heard many parents ask for age-appropriate books for their children, so I'm reviewing a handful of them here. And I'm talking with children's author Shanon Morris, who penned the book MC Veggie Fresh Rocks the Mic. You can find all the show notes for today's episode over at jillcastle.com/096. That's 096 for episode number 96. Let's hit it.
Welcome to the Nourished Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing a healthy child. Here's your host, registered dietitian and childhood nutrition expert, Jill Castle.
Hey everyone. Thanks for joining me here at The Nourished Child, which is a podcast about child nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing healthy ones inside and out. I'm Jill Castle, your host. I'm a registered dietitian specializing in pediatric nutrition, and today you're in for a treat. I posted a Facebook post quite a while ago about favorite kids' books about nutrition, and I got quite a few responses. I've also gotten quite a few books delivered to my doorstep on the topic of nutrition for children. So these aren't parenting books I'm talking about today. These are books you can sit down with your children and read to them, and they are about nutrition or food, fruits, vegetables, cookbooks. You'll see a wide variety of things. Today, I have children's book author Shanon Morris. Well, she's actually a registered dietitian and a children's author, and she wrote the book called MC Veggie Fresh Rocks the Mic. She'll be on the show just briefly to talk about how she came about writing a book, why she wrote a children's book, and what she hopes this book will do for kids who read it. So that's a treat. You'll get to hear from Shanon. I also have a few books that I'll review, as well as a reading list I put together. Now, I'm still putting the reading list together. I have over 50 books for kids about nutrition on this list. It is coming together. I'm actually going to publish this list on my blog, but once it's published, I'll come back into these show notes and link it up in the show notes so that you can go and find that blog and see all the different books. Some of these books are books I read to my own children. Some of the books are brand new I've never heard of before, but I've kind of dabbled in and looked at reviews to see if they would be appropriate on the reading list. So stay tuned for that. And then I have a question for you. Are you less than satisfied with your dinner time, your family meal time? I was too. Back when my oldest was 9 years old, I looked at my husband across the table and I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be a long haul. We had started to get into the business of talking about what our kids were eating and whether they were trying something that I put on the table. And I knew as a pediatric dietitian that that was a slippery slope. So I flipped the way I do family meals, and my husband and I started to do family style meals. And as a result, I have learned so much about family style meals and have been teaching my own families and clients about how to do them. And I still see so many families struggling with dinner time. So I've put together a workshop that's coming up on November 12th. It'll be aired live at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's called Eat in Peace, a step-by-step approach to happy, healthy family style meals. So the workshop will be live. It's available. You can sign up for it. It's $49. It's 2 hours long. You'll be able to learn. You'll also have some time at the end to ask questions of me live. The entire session will be recorded, and it will be hosted on my nutrition prep school, where I have all my classes and courses hosted there. So this will be added to that compilation of different classes and courses, but it also will be available to you should you sign up and can't attend live. So if you're worried that you want to come to this workshop, but you know that you're not going to be able to be available at 10 a.m. on November 12th, that's okay. You still have to sign up if you want to listen to that workshop. We'll be recording it, and you will get a replay, a recording of the workshop, and you'll be able to also get the PDF book that's going to go along with the workshop and hear some of the most common questions and how I guide families through some of those common challenges that children experience and families experience, quite frankly, at the dinner table. So again, that's Eat in Peace. It will be airing live on November 12th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, but it will be recorded. And even if you can't be there, if you sign up, you will get a replay link to watch it on your own time. The first book I want to review is called The Super Cruise Breakfast Cookbook for Kids, and it's written by Melissa Hallis, and she has compiled a cookbook that's not only just full of 50 different recipes, it also has over 100 fun nutrition activities for your kids to do as they're exploring cooking. It is a super cute book. Melissa introduces you to the Super Crew, a variety of different characters, nutrition characters that interact throughout the book. And she also takes you through plant-based foods for breakfast, cooking skills, and she gives you great tips about different ingredients that go into the recipes so you can actually have conversations, knowledgeable conversations with your child. Melissa is a registered dietitian. She's a certified diabetes educator and wellness expert, and she is the creator of Super Kids Nutrition and the Super Crew. Melissa is a personal friend, and I think that you will really enjoy her book. She comes to all of her books with an education, a nutrition education background, and she incorporates activities and ways to get kids involved in terms of building their skills with cooking, but also incorporating some interesting activities that will further their knowledge. So again, this one's called the Super Cruise Breakfast Cookbook for Kids. You can get it on Melissa's website, supercrewnutrition.com. I'll post a picture of this in the show notes, but it's super, super duper cute. And I encourage you, if you're looking for a way to get your kids involved in the kitchen, breakfast is an easy thing to do on the weekends with them. And there's lots of delicious recipes that are also nutritious for your kids to make. Now, the second book I want to review is for those parents out there that want to teach their kids about fruits and vegetables. Author Dani Leibovitz has written 2 books, actually. Her latest one is called Where Do Bananas Come From? It's a book of fruits, but she's also the author of Where Does Broccoli Come From? A book of vegetables. And her whole spin on these 2 books, well, number one, these books are absolutely beautiful. They're very well illustrated, and they remind me a lot of some of the books that I read to my children when they were younger, where there was just a lot on the page, a lot of pictures and dynamic stuff happening on the page where the child could really spend a lot of time on each page. That's sort of the concept and the approach that Dani has taken with both of these books. And so she takes each vegetable and each fruit. Well, let's just cover the fruit one first. Where do bananas come from? She alphabetically orders the fruits, and she talks about what the fruit name is, how to describe it, what nutrients are contained in the fruit. She lists some fun facts about the fruit. She talks about what type of fruit the fruit is classified as, the types of plants that the fruit comes from, and just a whole lot more. And then she takes you through when to pick the fruit, when the peak season is, how to store it, how you can prepare it, some suggested cooking methods. So it's a great way for kids to learn, and even parents. Quite frankly, I looked through some of these fruits. I'm like, oh, I could learn about pumelos. I don't really know a lot about pumelos. So it takes you through all these different fruits, and it's a great way to teach your child, explore fruit, look for these fruits in the grocery store, and think of different fun ways to serve them up to your child. So it's almost like an encyclopedia of fruit. Now, she takes the same approach with her book called Where Does Broccoli Come From? A book of vegetables. Again, same thing. listed alphabetically, goes through all the key nutrients that the fruit provides, where they come from, what type of plant, how to prepare them, how to store them, when they're in season. So it's a great opportunity to have sort of these two encyclopedic books, if you will, about fruits and about vegetables. What I love about them is, especially if you have a picky eater or an extremely picky eater, this is a non-threatening way to allow your child to learn about fruits and vegetables that they may not be eating right now, but it's a nice, easy way to segue into learning about a specific fruit and vegetable without actually having to interact with it physically. So if for those of you out there who do have picky eaters and are looking for ways to teach your child about fruits and vegetables in a way that's not going to put too much pressure on them or threaten them, this is a great starting or a jumping off point. So again, these two books, Where Do Bananas Come From and Where Does Broccoli Come From, both by Danny Leibovitz. They're available on Amazon, so I encourage you to check those out. The third book I want to introduce to you is a book, and it's not a nutrition book. This is actually a book that I felt really compelled to share with you because there's so much anxiety in our children these days, and I see it in my own personal clients. I see it with my own kids sometimes, and I think this book really spoke to me when I received it in the mail. It's a book called Big Breath, a guided meditation for kids, and it's written by William Meyer. And he says he's a teacher, a student, a writer, and most of all, a meditator. And he wants to share this benefit to children. And I think that's a good idea. It basically takes you through, when you read it with your child, it takes you through the steps to meditate and encouraging visualization and big breaths and breathing out and feeling lighter and calmer. This is something that you can use with your child before bedtime when you want to help them wind down. It's something that you can pick up and read if your child, or you notice your child's feeling stressed out or a little bit more anxious during the day. So Big Breath, a guided meditation for kids by William Meyer. You can find this book on Amazon, and it's a nice size book. It's very well illustrated. And it's just a way to introduce meditation. If you're a meditator yourself, you know the benefits of doing it. And there's no reason why we can't introduce these skills and techniques to our children. One of the things that I've always said to my clients who complain that their kids seem anxious or stressed out is acknowledging the fact that kids need coping skills for these feelings. And we don't necessarily, or we aren't necessarily equipped with the coping skills. These are things we need to learn to help us. And you might learn how to cope. Like I was a kid that learned, to cope with stress, I would exercise, and not to an extreme, but like I knew that if I went running that I was going to feel better. It was going to be a release for me. And some of my own kids do that. They use exercise as a way to release their stress. Currently, I do that, but I also use yoga as a way to calm myself down, as a way to cope and just breathe, take space, create space to breathe. And while I'm not a meditator, I certainly appreciate the benefits of meditation, and I think they can be very beneficial for kids. So this is a nice jumping off point. If you're not sure you want to meditate or do yoga or anything like that with your kids, this book might be just a good place to start to see if it feels right for you or if it's feeling right for your child. Again, Big Breath by William Meyer, a guided meditation for kids. Last, I want to introduce you to a children's book author by the name of Shanon Morris. Shanon is the debut author of MC Veggie Fresh, Rocks the Mic. It's a colorful story that makes nutrition education fun for kids. She's a registered dietitian and has been working with communities from children to senior citizens for the last decade with the goal of making nutrition education relatable, accessible, and enjoyable for all. She lives in New York City and holds a position as a Senior Director of Community Impact at the American Heart Association and is a graduate of Howard University. So now I'd like to introduce you to Shanon, and you'll hear us. We had to take about 4 takes to get this interview. For some reason, we were just not able to connect very well. So by the time we actually connected, we were both a little bit worn out from retrying to connect. But she is such a trooper, and she hung in there, and we were able to get the interview. So I want to share that with you right now. Here's Shanon. Hey, Shanon. Welcome to the Nourished Child Podcast.
Hi, Jill. How's it going?
It's going well. Well, I've had better days. How about you?
It's going.
We've had quite the challenge trying to get this recording. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed on this end that we will have no more problems.
Same here.
Okay, good. So you are a children's book author. Your book, MC Veggie Fresh, Rocks the Mic, has recently come out. But before we dig into the storyline, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a registered dietitian who's based out of New York City. I've worked from after school programs to senior centers. I've worked with almost every different population you can think of here in the city. But I really found my happy place when it comes to working with children and making nutrition education really exciting for them. So writing this book was the next natural thing for me to do.
Children are amazing to work with. I love working with them too. What is it about them that gives you inspiration for a book?
Specifically when educating children, you never know what they're going to say, which is always very exciting. But the great thing is that I'm always so surprised about how much they know, number one, and then number two, how much they soak in all that information. And if you have the opportunity to work with children, the same children over and over again a few times, it's amazing to see how quickly they can learn new information and not only learn it, but teach it to other children or to their parents at home. So they really are, I mean, it's cliche, they're the future of food, if you ask me. So to be able to empower them to make good food choices just felt natural.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you had said, when did you decide to write a children's book?
So I've always wanted to write a book. Honestly, I grew up with my head in a book at all times. I grew up writing a lot of poetry. So I always knew I wanted to write something, but I guess I was just waiting for the big idea to come on, the aha moment, so to speak. So I had the idea of MC Veggie Fresh 5 years ago. And I joked to myself that if I were a rapper, my name would be MC Veggie Fresh. And as a grown person who's not, a rapper, I probably wasn't going to, drop an album. So I figured that a book would be the next best thing and it would be geared towards children. Life kind of happened. And 5 years later, I said, okay, I should probably put pen to paper and make this come to life.
And did you consider different stories or different storylines?
So over the course of 5 years, I probably tried to write the book 1 or 2 times. And, I had a book with little, scribbles and pictures and different storylines. I had a few different ideas. But this one kind of came to life. I knew that the storyline talks about the main character running for her Healthy Hero election. And I knew that I wanted the impact of the book to be that children had something to look up to, and not just a character, but they could be their own healthy hero. And so I thought about that visual, and a hero is something that a child can really relate to.
Mm-hmm. And were there any kids in the past that you worked with, or a particular child or group of children that really inspired sort of how this could play out, the story?
I don't know if I could say a particular child. In the last 4 years, I have written many nutrition curriculums for my previous position, and I've run events for hundreds of children at a time. And so I've had a great amount of experience being creative and hearing feedback, seeing what works, what doesn't work. So I don't know that I was inspired by just one child, but I definitely was inspired by just my work experience and seeing how nimble and how fun nutrition really can be when you add some flavor to it.
Mm-hmm. And in your experience, what have you found does not work with kids in terms of education? And I think this is a particularly important question for parents out there who might be wanting to teach their children about nutrition. We oftentimes think there's a right way to do things and there's not a right way to do things. In your experience, what have you found does not work? And then I guess on the flip side, what does work?
Sure. So I'll go about what doesn't work first. So what doesn't work is telling a child what they should do. Don't tell them why they should do it. That because never really happens. You just say, eat this, that's it. Or you say that this food is high in vitamin A, and that's why it's good for you. But there's no excitement behind that. And so I believe the more that you really can add a child to the process, the better. And so in my experience, I've always taught educators to make sure children are a part of the process. So make a game out of it. It doesn't have to be super intense. It can be very simple, like a matching game of having them match a picture to the benefit or having them act out the benefit, like a game of charades. You can be really creative when it comes to teaching children. They're going to remember it so much better when they're having fun. Same thing when it comes to cooking. I grew up not really helping my mother in the kitchen because that wasn't a place for kids. But I do think that a place for kids is in the kitchen. And it could be as simple as them destemming a piece of spinach or mixing batter in a bowl or just setting the table, hopefully more than just setting the table. That could be your first step in. But the more involved they're in something, the happier they are in the long run. So definitely the more engaging you can be and the less daunting it feels, the better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, though, some parents are really challenged by the fact that life is busy and time is short. So, when you're working with these children, and then by default, I guess you're working with the parents as well, how are you helping parents overcome these obstacles of time and energy and just effort?
Yeah, I think that it could feel like it's a lot, even when you talk to parents in general, just about going grocery shopping, that can feel like a lot when you have a family to think about. If you take a few extra minutes, you can add something really meaningful. So for example, if you're going to the grocery store and you have your children or child with you, give them one thing to pick out. Say you can pick out one fruit and vegetable yourself today. It's your choice and we can figure out what to make with it, or it could just be eaten by itself, in its natural form. Give them that one moment to choose something for themselves as opposed to just sitting in the car or walking beside you. If you're already making a recipe or cooking at home, give them a small job. And it doesn't have to be, like we're making this full out 3-course meal together. It could be something very minimal. Just get them in the mood, developing a healthy relationship with food. So it doesn't have to be super robust. It could be you're making breakfast in the morning and they're pouring in the blueberries into the batter of pancakes. That's small, or washing them off and you're teaching them how to wash produce. Those small things, that 2-minute exposure can really go a long way.
Mm-hmm. And what age of children are you working with?
So the book is for elementary school, which can range depending on, when you start school and when you actually exit out of elementary school. So about 5 to 11 years of age.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are the benefits of teaching kids to cook and get involved in food and exploration in the kitchen at that age in particular?
Oh, it's so important at this age because that's when they're really starting to form opinions. So much of our food opinions come from when we're that age, when you're a child. And so many of our opinions come from how our parents feel about food. So getting them involved in the cooking process, getting them involved in just the eating process. Well, they're already involved in the eating process, right? But getting them to have a healthier setting when it comes to eating. So not being in front of a phone or a television and being really mindful in that. Super important. They're able to, one, form their own opinions about food, which is important. They're able to hopefully try more things. They're exposed to different types of food or foods that they love in different ways. And they're also able to experiment. I think that my favorite part about this book and about cooking with children and teaching kids about nutrition is sharing with them that they can have a voice and choice. And that's something that even adults really enjoy, right? We all like to pick out what we want to eat as a child. You don't necessarily get that very often. But if you work together with the guardian in your household, developing that voice and choice when it comes to food will go a long way. You'll be able to, I think, enjoy food a lot more as you get older.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk about MC Veggie Fresh. She's the main character. What is it about her that you want other kids to appreciate or know about her?
Well, I think when I came up with Clementine, I really wanted to develop a character that was someone that kids can relate to. So Clementine starts out the story just not really sure of herself. She was a bit insecure about running for the Healthy Hero election. She was being bullied by Edgar and his junk food friends, but she was able to overcome those barriers and transform into MC Veggie Fresh because she listened to her mom, who told her to just believe in herself. But then she came to find her passion, which was healthy food and hip hop. And I really want kids to realize that it's okay to like things that are different. You can still celebrate it. And who knows, sometimes you can get the whole crowd to be on your side, but even if they aren't, it's okay. So I think the big picture here when it comes to Clementine to me is that one, eating healthy is super cool, but even if it's not eating healthy, it's okay to stand out and to stand up for your passion.
Mm-hmm. And she goes through quite a transformation, and she had the benefit of having a parent who was a great role model for her. In terms of, kids being role models for other kids, you mentioned earlier how great kids do at teaching other kids about nutrition. What sort of lessons did Clementine teach her friends in this story?
Sure. So I think a few different things, right? So one, she taught her brothers, Basil and Sage, that what a healthy hero was, because they were super curious about, why she was practicing in the mirror and talking all funny when she's trying to figure out her speech. So she taught them the importance of a healthy hero and having a good role model like their mother. When she went off into the stage and she actually performed, she was able to, one, get her friends and her participants in the school to realize how fun nutrition was. And you'll see in the story where at the end of the story, everybody wants to go to her mother's community garden in Harlem and help garden and eat her healthy recipes. She basically, in my opinion, she started a movement. She got people excited and off their feet. And, those could have been the same people who saw her being made fun of by the junk food friends. And she didn't really back down. She said, I'm going to do it this way. I hope that the message that she's spreading is that it can be fun. You can do it your way and don't let anybody bully you.
Yeah, that's a good message, especially today, right?
Definitely.
She also says eating healthy can be fun. And you have that main message throughout the entire book. What other messages are important for kids to understand about nutrition?
Well, I think that, yes, nutrition can be fun. I think that it's important for them to understand that nutrition is what you make it, that, a lot of people hear the diet word, and probably not so much kids as much as adults. They hear the diet word and they think that, that means I'm not supposed to eat a lot of food, but it's just really what you eat, what you enjoy to eat, and what's your daily regimen. So I think that it's important for kids to know that your diet can be as colorful as you allow it to be and as colorful as you're willing to expose yourself to and try new things. That's why there's recipes in the book, that we want our kids to try different things and help be a part of that process. I think it's important also throughout the book that, it's very intentional. You'll see that the recipes that are in the back of the book are mentioned throughout the book. And we talk about whole grain tortilla chips. We talk about when her mother is yelling for Basil and Sage to come down the stairs to help them. To help her cook, she goes, I need your help in mixing, measuring, and taste testing. It's all these things that kids can do, that nutrition is about you having a role. And it's not just in a recipe. It's you have a role in choosing and making. I think that the message, again, and maybe I sound like a broken record, it's about truly empowering kids to be a part of the process.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you did a great job of tying all those things together. The recipes in the back of the book are clearly recipes that children can make. They are, showcased in the storyline, which I thought was very clever and just a really nice way to wrap it all together. But you also include a little wrap at the end of the book. Do you mind rapping for us a little bit?
Sure. This always seems to come up. I don't know why I ever think that I'm going to get away with not having to rap on a podcast.
When I was reading that, I was like, I wonder what the tune is, how this goes down.
Sure.
Give us a little, you don't have to give the whole thing away, but just give us a little taste.
So I spit healthy rhymes by rhyming what I spit to help all the kids get what I get. You are what you eat, but you got to think on your feet. It's easy to be tricked, so be careful with your treats. Eating healthy is what we should do. Who doesn't love the chew, chew, chew? Greens, reds, yellows, and blues, all in our tummies. No need for those gummies. From the start of the day, let's play, play, play. Follow me and I'll lead the way. I'm your healthy hero. MC Veggie Fresh saves the day.
Awesome, Shanon. Bravo. I love it. Where can parents especially find your book so they can hopefully grab it for their school, grab it for their kids, give it away as a gift?
Yes. So you can go on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, even Walmart.com has it right now. It's in a few Whole Foods right now as well. So it's in Upper West Side, Upper East Side, Tribeca, Harlem, and Columbus Circle.
Awesome. Is it hardback and paperback?
Hardback and paperback. Yep. You can choose which one you prefer.
Nice. Ebook also, or?
There's also an ebook. Yep.
Wow. You got it all covered. Where can people learn more about you, Shanon?
So you can head to my website, which is www.shannonmorris.com, and that's one N in the middle for Shannon. Or you can also follow me on Instagram, which is Shanon Morris _.
Very nice. Well, thank you, Shanon, so much for coming on The Nourished Child today and sharing your amazing children's book.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks to Shanon for sharing some insight into what it's like to be a children's author, why or what motivated her to write, and how she went about writing MC Veggie Fresh Rocks the Mic. Now, I have a running list of kids' nutrition books, or a book reading list for kids all about nutrition, and I thought I would just highlight a couple of them that I shared with my own children growing up. And I also, as I mentioned earlier, it's a list of 49 or 50. I'm sure if you have a suggestion to add to the list, please email me, let me know, or pop it over into the comments on Facebook. We'll keep a running list because I think it's a nice thing for parents to have, especially with the holidays coming up. But one of my all-time favorites that I read to my children was a book called Tops and Bottoms. And it's a book about how root vegetables are grown and leafy vegetables are grown, or above the ground vegetables and below the ground vegetables. It's a cute little story. Another one I read to my kids a lot was Blueberries for Sal. One of my 4 children was absolutely obsessed with that book, and we had to read it every night for quite some time. It's a classic. It is one that is beloved in our family. So if you don't have Blueberries for Sal, you might want to pick that one up for your little ones. DW the Picky Eater was another one we read quite a bit. My kids got a kick out of her. They related to her and related to her feelings about not wanting to eat food. And so it was always a cute story to help the kids understand that they weren't alone, that there are other people out there that are picky eaters too. Another book we read to our kids was called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And it's a story about a little town that wished for food to drop from the sky like rain. And so it's this whole exploration of, would it be a good thing if that happened? Or would it be too messy? What if you didn't have a choice? What if you didn't like what fell? It's a very cute little story that we read a lot. And then, of course, we read the classics, Green Eggs and Ham, To Market, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Bread and Jam for Francis. And when my kids were little, the whole series called If You Give a Pig a Pancake, If You Give a Cat a Cupcake, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, all of those had started coming out. So those were a lot of fun too. Those are just a snapshot of some of the books that will be in that list of 50 different nutrition books that you can put on your reading list for your children. Again, the idea is that we don't have to be on this forced march to teach our children about food and nutrition. We can let it happen naturally. And reading books together about stories that incorporate food and nutrition as a theme is a nice way to not just enjoy your time together with your child and introduce the topic of food or nutrition. It's just a lighthearted way to acknowledge that food's in our everyday lives. And if questions come from those readings, those are opportunities for you to encourage and share positive messages about food. So in terms of when will this list be up, I'm hoping within the next 3 to 4 weeks, you'll see a blog post about a reading list of nutrition books for kids. And again, I'll link up to the show notes here, www.jillcastle.com/096, so that you can link between the podcast show notes over to the blog, which will have the reading list. If I'm really got my act together, I'll put together a downloadable PDF list for you so you can print it out and have it. Again, thinking of the holidays, thinking of great little gifts to give your little ones. I know we always gave, or actually my mother-in-law always gave my children a book, each of them a book for Christmas. So this is a nice way to celebrate holidays or birthdays or just because days. So I hope that you will give some of those books I reviewed a look-see. Where do bananas come from? Where does broccoli come from? The Super Cruise Breakfast Cookbook, big breath, and MC Veggie Fresh rocks the mic. You can find today's show notes and all the links to the books that I reviewed over on jillcastle.com/096. That's it for this week. It's short and sweet. I hope that you have a good rest of the day, and be sure to give that child in your life a loving squeeze today. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child inside and out.